That was my bad.
It's a good way to spend time.
Good
So,
morning, Maureen.
Good morning, and I'm gonna make a mess over here all over the table because I needed to use the napkins I got to clean up this.
Next week.
Next week.
What about you?
This
This week, okay.
this is me on break.
So you're working on
Yes. Joy, no doubt.
That's right.
Understood, there are more members, yes.
All right, so I think we have reached and passed the top of the hour, so if you guys are all ready to go, we will call the meeting to order. So good to see all of you. It's been a minute. We have I will say a foundational agenda here. I think we have some new faces around the room and want to take some time to do some introductions and make sure that all the ELAC members understand the changes happening across the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning and vice versa. So with that, I will seek your approval of the agenda that you have before you here today. We have a motion, we have a second, we have a 14. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, great. Well, we will get right into it. And for my report, really, it is just my honor to welcome Adam first and foremost to the meeting in a new role. We're going to learn more about him in just a minute, but I thought that we might benefit by going around the room and just doing a round of introductions so that everyone knows who's here with them. So Kelly, you want to start?
It's easy, IDOE.
Wonderful. And I'm Maureen Weber. And in addition to spending this time with all of you, I have the opportunity to serve as president and CEO of Early Learning Indiana.
I'm Al Baker, retired, but a strong advocate of early education.
Right. And what part of the state do you have from?
Fort Wayne.
I'm Kimberly Brooks, Director of Federal Programs for Fort Wayne Community Schools.
Same here. Same here.
Sam Snipe in the Iowa Central Indiana. I surprisingly represent Eastern Detroit. Indianapolis.
Ashley Moon.
And soccer players everywhere.
That's our.
Oh,
Sorry, Ashley.
Ashley Moon, and I'm the Indiana Head Start Collaboration Director with the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning. Great.
Rob Moorhead, Superintendent, South Ripley Community Schools in Versailles, Indiana, southeast corner of the state. Glad to be representing K through 12.
So, and Adam Allison, Director of the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School.
And Lisa Metler, I am Director of Innovation and Collaboration at the Office of Early Childhood and assisting Maureen in facilitating this meeting today.
Thank you, Lisa. And thanks to all of you. And for those of you who might be joining us through the live stream as well. And we have a number of guests here in the room as well. We're honored, of course, by your presence. So I think that we will just march on and I'll turn it over to Adam. We already approved the agenda. Sorry,
okay.
I'm not to be trusted. I did things out of order right out of the gate. But I'll turn things over to Adam to share with us a bit about the evolution of the OE Castle leadership team.
So, thank you, Maureen. First, just want to say that I am looking forward to working with everyone here on ELAC around how we more broadly and then also more specifically how the office how we make childcare better. Right, it's pretty broad. It's a broad statement, but it's one I think we all believe in, or we wouldn't be here in various ways. And I look forward over the next meetings, and I know we'll have email conversations and phone calls throughout the next months and years of figuring out what each of your concerns are, what are the opportunities, what do you see, and also then how can the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning be a part of it. So a little bit about me. I live in Rensselaer. I come from the childcare. I come to the childcare space from the founder and past president of the nonprofit called Appleseed Childhood Education in Rensselaer. Before my day job, up to 5 weeks ago, was being a corn and soybean farmer, and that this is much different than that. But I think there's a lot of similarities, right? We're growing things right? We're growing things, we want to make things better. I live in a community of 5,000 people that has a demographic problem. But we're getting smaller and older, and how do we fix that? From my perspective, one way we can do that is to, how do we build childcare supply? How do we build it affordably, right? How do we do things like this? And how do we do it you know, and how do we do it broadly? Well, how do we do it specifically in places, right? Which we all are from places and we all have the things that we care about locally, and also is there opportunities on how we do it more broadly? I come from childcare from a business perspective as a farmer. Before that, I was a bond trader for Bank of America in New York City. I come from childcare from a place of we have to figure out how to make a business model work. At the end of the day, it's dollars. And how do we build supply? How do we keep voucher demand? You know, how do we maintain voucher supply? How do we do childcare supply? All these things. So that's a little bit about me. Let me say a little bit more about about Appleseed. The nonprofit was formed to increase the availability of affordable and quality childcare in Rensselaer and surrounding communities. After 3 years of work, great bunch of people, committed people locally through a public-private partnership model, we opened a 70-seat affordable quality childcare center on our local hospital campus. It's predominantly funded by local government as well. And it's been open for 2 years. And I think I come from it from a business perspective. I understand the challenges of how do we build supply and how do we keep it. So enough about me. Looking forward to get to know each of you more as we go forward.
Yeah, we appreciate the chance to hear a little bit about your very interesting background, and we're excited to see how the different perspective that you have might change the way that the work happens. So
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that.
and I might just welcome, as she comes to the table, one additional member of the ELAC, and Sherry, sorry, welcome. If you don't mind doing just a quick introduction, so that we're all getting to know each other once again.
Okay. Sherry Searles, I'm the director of Launchpad, which is the Early Learning Coalition for Kosciuszko County. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm like,
No.
all right.
No.
Adam, you have the floor.
Okay, so OE has a new mission and vision. The mission for OE here going forward is to effectively support children, families, and providers within Indiana's childcare system. And vision is to maximize the availability of quality childcare and childcare resources for Hoosier children, families, providers, community stakeholders, and Indiana's workforce. So that's a little bit, so that's about me in a very broad stroke of hopefully setting the stage on where we go as an office in the future. There will be more to come on that, but also give me some grace. I've been on the job for 5 years. So next we want to.
I think it's like 5.5.
Oh. You are right. It is 5.5. Okay. So obviously, I came, as we just said, I took this job 5.5 weeks ago, and came into a position where we have a wait list, right, for vouchers, and and I understand that it would help us from OE perspective to help level set where our funding comes from, how we, from a very broad perspective, what position we are in now, and then also what sort of the determinants will be on how we will do, how we will look at voucher funding and potentially other types of things as well, for the next couple of years, right? Just kind of level set expectations between the office and so. Very broadly, this is how I want to go through this. This is how this is how the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning is funded in Indiana. So there are both federal funds and state funds, right? So there's state appropriated funds that come from the budget process, and there's also 2 major federal funded programs. The first one is the Child Care Development Fund. You also may hear it described as the Child Care Development Block Grant, that effectively is about the same sort of fund. It's the same funding stream. In federal fiscal year 24, the state of Indiana received $260 million total from the CCDF fund from the federal government. There's a whole set of regulations about what we can and cannot do with those funds. the majority of them go to CCDF vouchers, the vast majority. The other major federal funded program that OE uses is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Fund, or TANF. States, TANF is block grant, that's given to states, and states have the option to then transfer a portion of that to fund childcare vouchers. And Indiana does that, and Indiana does it to the maximum annually. In federal fiscal year 24, that amount was $61 million. So those are, now let's go to the two state line items that are in the budget. So OE has two line items in the state budget. The first one is the early childhood learning line. In state fiscal year 25, which is the fiscal year that will be ending in July of 25, that amount is $40 million. So those are funds that are appropriated by the legislature to fund childcare and goes directly to the Office of Early Childhood and School Learning.
And Adam, just a question, those are appropriated as required for a federal match, is that right? That we appropriate those dollars to then draw down?
Yes, yes, historically, for both, for historically, the state of Indiana funds the early childhood learning line item to maximize all federal funds that we can receive from a block grant perspective. Thank you, Maureen. Yeah. And so then we have a second line as well, which in the state budget, which is the pre-K education line. It predominantly funds On My Way pre-K vouchers. That amount in state fiscal year 25 was $27 million. So all these funding, the arrows hopefully signify, well, they do signify large amounts of money that go and in relative sizes that come into the Office of Early Childhood and Now School Learning. And what comes out is CCDF vouchers and On My Way pre-K vouchers predominantly. So we go on to the next slide, Lisa. So for our expenditures for the state fiscal year of 25, there's not numbers on here, but they're percentages, right? So 81% of the funds that come into OE CASL in this current state fiscal year will be going out to vouchers, right? Whether those are CCDF vouchers or On My Way vouchers. 17% goes to contracts and grants. So that's a combination of third-party providers, but also what's included in there would be our employer-sponsored childcare grants and other things like that. That is coming out of that 17%. Salary and benefits for OE CASL staff is 2%, and then our other various other utilities, other like postage, things like that is effectively not. So I think the main point of takeaway here is that money comes in, money goes back out, right? Okay.
There have been a lot of dollars, if I may, over the last few years flowing from the American Rescue Plan Act and other sort of post-pandemic
Yes.
coping programs. And none of that is reflected here. This is really just the view of the sources that you.
Yeah, sources and uses. Yeah, very broadly. Yeah, if it's something that we could, if it's something that ELAC is interested in the future, we could definitely talk to us about historically and prepare those for future meetings.
No, I think that's very helpful to just understand that this is basically a current snapshot of ongoing funds.
Yes, yes. So now going on to and actually your question is very pertinent because the next slide here is, want to take a look at where we have been around both CCDF and On My Way vouchers. So the graph here and what we're showing here is the total number of childcare vouchers, which is a combination of both CCDF vouchers and our On My Way vouchers. Since 2021, we have doubled in Indiana. We have doubled the amount of outstanding vouchers that we have. From 33,700 to just over 66,000 as of January of this year. A lot of this funding came from COVID in our COVID dollars or our just to finance growth. So that's where we've been. We have, and we have seen and we have funded as a state of Indiana dramatic growth in the rise of vouchers, right? And I think there is something, there are positive knock-on effects all the way around for that, right? There are twice as many kids they're receiving, they're able to go to childcare that wouldn't have been able to 4 years ago. Right, that's the obvious one. You know, the second one as well is, I think that, I mean, you know, we have seen an increase in supply as well. Based off of this, right? Business model for childcare is based off of, right? A complicated blended funding streams, right? And an important one for any childcare business, or one predominant strategy in the state of Indiana is to receive revenue to receive these low income loans, right? CCDF and all. So we've had both, there's obviously the demand for it, we've seen the demand, and then obvious, you know, from the demand side of things, it's there, but then also, we've also seen a growth of supply over the last 5 years as well. Wanted to break out, and I also want to break out the on my way voucher, where we've been on from an on my way voucher perspective as well. Same sort of dramatic growth, actually even more so on the on my way perspective. In January of 21, we had 2,100 kids on my way vouchers. It peaked in January of 24 with over 7,300. In currently, or, you know, in this school year, there's roughly 5,500 vouchers outstanding. Same idea, right? And I think there's a whole host of obviously from a demand and supply perspective that there's positive things that have come. So that's where we've been, right? And now I'd like to say what our current state is, and then also what the things that we are going to be, it's going to be dependent on what we as an office are going to be able to do. So, as we all know, there's a wait list for child care vouchers that was initiated in December of 2020, right? Currently, there are more child care vouchers outstanding than funding available. This issue arose because the previous administration used one-time COVID dollars to bring in more enrollees and didn't really have much of a plan on what happens when the money runs out. They were prepared to cause a child care cliff here in Indiana. The number of vouchers were expanded without consideration of what would happen after those one-time COVID dollars dried up, and they are dried up. This decision was irresponsible. Instead, those dollars should have been spent on one-time investments in childcare infrastructure. The amount of state funding appropriated to childcare over the next 2 years will determine how OE CASEL manages both the CCDF and on my way voucher programs. So currently there are two sets of budget numbers around early childhood and OE CASEL funding, the governor's recommended budget, and then also the House recommended budget. House proposed budget. The governor's budget request of an additional $358 million biennium over baseline funding levels of state fiscal year 25 maintains vouchers at approximately current levels through July of 2027. The governor's budget request is designed to bring the cost of child care vouchers to Indiana down to an appropriate level, but to also do so in a thoughtful way to avoid unnecessary hardship for the parents and child care businesses who depend on this program. Next slide, Lisa. The second budget proposal that exists currently is the House budget proposal. Under the House proposed budget of an additional $155 million over the biennium over baseline funding, which is state fiscal year 25 levels. Total vouchers decrease through attrition to 48,000, and it is unknown when voucher enrollments resume. Regarding on my way vouchers, we estimate currently 3,400 vouchers will be available for state fiscal years 2026 and 2027, and at a reimbursement rate at the statutory maximum of $6,800 per voucher. And that's all I have. Thank you, Morgan.
Questions for Adam around the current state of affairs? I think they are in some ways also familiar to us.
You made a comment just a couple minutes ago about, not sure when the voucher enrollment will begin. What year are you, referring to for that? for 25 and the 26.
Are you thinking about On My Way prepaid in particular? Okay, yeah, which might be it.
Some of those decisions are gonna be dependent on what our. Going forward, what we're appropriate.
For right now, for 2025.
Yeah, we're working through what we understand that. We are aware of the pressing need to get that information out. And we're working through that currently, but don't have any hard answers for you, good answers.
Adam, combining a couple of your slides there, looking, I see the peak in January 2024 for On My Way was 7,400 and then down to 5,505 in 2025. When you say 3,400 total vouchers available based on the House budget, that would be then a continued decrease. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and that's an estimate currently, depending on the House budget, proposed budget, the funding levels that are in, and specifically the online, for us, you'd be on the pre-K education line item.
Right. And my guess is the demand continues to go up on that.
I think the demand is definitely there, right? This is solely from the what funding do we have available, not from the demand side.
Well, I appreciate the baseline and level setting here because that's very helpful to hear all of that. So thank you for that presentation.
Wonderful. Well, there's obviously a lot of activity going on just across the street from here as legislators continue to consider the budget and a number of other things. And we're going to have an update here, just a couple of slides around that. So thank you, Adam, for giving us that foundation. With that, I think we will invite your colleague Kim Rule to join us to talk a bit about family and subsidy supports. Front and center, Kim.
Yeah, make it easy. So hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kim Rule. I'm the Director of Family and Subsidy Supports at OE. And I'm going to share a little bit about our waitlist data. So total voucher waitlist and what that looks like. So as Adam said, we started this waitlist in December. And we really just wanted to kind of showcase what that looked like from December until now. And so this data showing through February of 25. As you can see in December, when we began the waitlist, our waitlist total started kind of small, but still growing. And our enrollment at that time was a little over 69,000 vouchers, and that's including On My Way and CCDF. So that's a really one of our largest enrollments ever at the state of Indiana. And as we moved into January, you can see how quickly our wait list is growing to a little over 7,000. And now here, as we end February and now we're into March, we know that total is continuing to grow. And as that wait list grows, we see that enrollment dropping just a tad. So again, this is really good information for us, not happy news, nothing that we're all excited about, but something that's really important and is just our reality at the moment. And so the data is really important to not only share here with you at ELAC, but also our stakeholders and the public to just have some transparency about where we're sitting in those numbers.
You can ask a question.
Yeah, of course.
Is that first come, first serve on getting the voucher and then also on the wait list? I mean, the sooner you apply, that's how it, or is there some kind of need base on the voucher wait list?
There's been no new vouchers since the wait list was being pulled. And, you know, we're not in a position we haven't quite got to the point of the, you know, we don't know when we will be able to begin enrolling vouchers again, and we have not set priorities around what that looks like, what that looks like yet.
So basically the 66,000 number I'm seeing, those folks are folks that already had, those
That's
are children that already had the vouchers.
Yep, they are current.
Good deal.
And if I understand correctly, the concern is if you add someone new, it will cut into what the dollars that you have to continue to fund the 66,000 that have existing vouchers. Is that my correct understanding?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so there's a re-enrollment process, right, for CCDF vouchers, right, at the 53-week. And our priority is to maintain the people that are currently have the voucher. Our priority, I guess this does answer your question, Rob, in a very indirect way.
Okay.
We are where we are from a funding perspective. Our priority is to maintain the current children and families that are on. Right, and. Right, vouchers get reauthorized every 53 weeks. Our priority is to maintain every one of those 66,000 kids. That they have a voucher, for full long term. That's our priority, which what that means is there is no. Until we have a clear picture of what our funding looks like for the next 7 years.
So does the decrease just represent those who have aged out?
Go ahead, yeah, sorry.
Typically, no, that's okay. Typically it is, it's usually they no longer need it, they no longer need that service, and so they moved on, and then also that they age out. And then hopefully at that time, they still could be eligible to continue on with services with school age vouchers. I'm sure you're familiar with.
But those would be, that's a different funding source there. So presumably you're gonna have some 4-year-olds that when the next. Okay, yeah, but current state, you've got some 4-year-olds that are receiving vouchers. They're part of that 66,000. They're going to rotate into kindergarten potentially. So they will not need the on my way pre-K voucher any longer. So what's the mechanism for filling, let's say there's 20,000 that are going to rotate on into kindergarten. So I assume the 10,000 would get the priority if those are still.
We have
ones on the wait
we
list.
have no money to do anything like that. What we're looking to do is we're trying to maintain our current supply with the idea of where kids are in the voucher, right? Once we have a better handle on what the future looks like, there is a whole host of policy decisions like the one you're describing that we are going to need to go through and be very conscious and intentional about how we go about it.
Okay.
And frankly, making sure that we are getting all of the situations that right, all of the various scenarios that we are accounting. That's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I did, looking at it, knowing that a school year is about to end and another school year starts, that's where I think there's gonna be a transition.
Of course.
Period of students that age out of the on my way pre.
That's right. Yes,
So
it will.
just looking at what that would look like then moving forward, and I'm hearing you say that to be determined.
To be determined, but it's a very good question, and we understand the challenge this is putting all parts of the childcare system, and we want to do the best that we can with what we have available with us, and with also understanding the complicated nature that how these things work, right? And from all of the various types of providers.
Sure. Thank you for that.
Other questions for Kim? This Kim, not that Kim, although she might be open to something. Yeah, I would just say, you know, and just sort of looking at the progression, it seems that the demand hasn't slacked at all, even as the wait list has continued to build. It's, you know, varies a little bit by month, but you're generally adding, you know, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 a month. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, which I think is, you know, good reminder that there are families that are trying to work and that, you know, have a dependency on receiving this voucher to go do that.
Want to add one other thing real quick is that I know at the last ELAC meeting, our public dashboard was presented. I just wanted to make sure that the ELAC board continues to be aware of that. That data is updated and continues to be updated. It's a very good information source to get more from a more granular perspective on where we are on some of these things. You know, the wait list numbers will be updated there, right? Our total enrollment numbers, things like that. Break it out by CCDF vouchers, on the way vouchers, kind of whatever you're kind of interested in. It's a very good resource.
Yeah, one thing that I'm not sure if there are possible here, but I found the subsidy dashboard to be really, really helpful and appreciate that you all deployed it at such a good time in retrospect. I do wonder, is it possible to add where the wait list is distributed across the state? I don't think that's currently on there, and I wonder if that might be, which is helpful to policymakers, especially to understand.
We could look at it. Yes.
Appreciate that. All right. With no
Yeah.
further questions for Kim, thank you. And we will invite Christy and our own Sam Snyderman to share with us a few legislative updates. We are in the busy season.
Good morning. So just wanted to do a quick update, and then Sam was kind enough to be willing to jump in and talk about some of the impacts of the bill on early care and education in the state of Indiana. So just calling out a
Christine,
couple.
I might back you up. Maybe not everyone knows you, so if you don't want to do an introduction as well.
Sorry, I am Christy Burkhart. I am the Director of Quality Practice at OE Castle.
We're delighted to have you here. Thanks.
I know so many faces that just jumped right in. I apologize.
No worries.
So just want to call out a couple of these bills. Senate Bill 486, Family and Social Service Matters. That is repealing the TB test that is needed for CCDF voucher certification. And it is also changing language to add that pediatric component to CPR. And then I'm going to drop down and just call out Senate Bill 366, Education Matters. I just wanted to call that attention to ELAC today because it does have a piece around ELAC working with the Department of Education to and then
Can you share more about what are the nature of the studies?
sure. So looking at ways to fund high school and so the report would look at ways to fund preschool outside of the CCDF voucher funding. And Sam, please jump in if I miss anything.
Sure, go ahead.
And then the one that I wanted to really kind of draw attention to today is Senate Bill 463, which is Child Care Matters. So this bill does extend the availability of the employer child care expenditure tax credit through July 1st of 2027. It adds a representative of out-of-time school to the ELAC committee. It provides that a child care center may maintain ratios for specific age groups of bordering states, and that we will post those ratios and group sizes on our website by December 1st of each year. It also, the office shall select 5 child care providers for the micro facilities pilot and requires the office to adopt the interim rules no later than July 1st of 2025. And Sam, I know that you were in committee this morning, and if you can give an update.
Yeah, so I'll actually, yeah, so on 463, there were 3 amendments that were adopted this morning in committee. One adds an additional seat to the ELAC. I mean, just it will likely be IAN, Indiana After School Network, or an organization like it. The way that the amendment is written, it says that you're going to add a seat of a statewide organization that is interested in the training and development and support of out-of-school time providers, school age providers. So not a provider, which is what's in the original. So there will be 2 new seats, one provider and one organization like IAN. Additionally, there was language to restore the local child care assistance grant program, which was an original part of the bill. It was taken out in the Senate Appropriations Committee. And is this matching grant program that would be a 1-to-1 match between county governments and the state. Now it has a fiscal, so it'll go to Ways and Means. We'll see if Ways and Means keeps it in or if it's something that goes into the budget in the end. But that original language from 463 was reinserted this morning. And then there was an amendment on that dealt with child care and pre-K at schools and was very sort of technical in terms of who counts as part of the ratio, what do you do for maximum group sizes and ratios in places like the gym or the cafeteria or things like that. And then deals a little bit with the career pathways and allowing students who are in high school to work, in school-based childcare, facilities. You know, as part of a career pathway for high school. There was also a prolonged discussion about those staff and maximum group size ratio language that would happen last week as well, but no changes were made ultimately to that language.
And if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't those students that are in the high school pathways that are working in school-based childcare and pre-K be able to count towards
Yes,
the ratios?
as long as they're being supervised, yeah, they would count for the ratios, yeah.
As part of the amendment.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you for that. There's hot off the presses.
Yeah.
And it just, do I remember correctly, Sam, that Governor Braun's budget proposed $4 million for that local fund?
2 million a year, yep.
Over the biennium. That's wonderful. Sherry, did you have a question?
Yeah, was this also the same bill that said schools could enroll children from the community, they did not have to be,
So that's 1253.
gotcha.
And I think we'll be talking about that here shortly as well.
Thank you.
One other thing I wanted to touch on with 366 was heard in House Education this morning, but it was held. There are some, it being a various education matters bill, there were lots of questions about other provisions, not about the ELAC study provision itself. So although the timeline on the study that they would like ELAC to do is relatively tight, because they would like us to do the study by August 1st. So relatively quick.
Ambitious goals here. I think that's great.
Implement. Yeah.
One question that I have is just related to 463, the use of that employer tax credit. And I think wonderful that it's being extended. The last time I checked into it, it seemed like not a lot of employers knew about it or were taking advantage of it. So this might be a thing that, you know, if this language gets approved, I just really appreciate understanding what the utilization is and if there are things we might be doing to encourage that.
And I will also say that the Manufacturers Association has been engaged with this bill on that point, wanting to make sure that at least its members are more aware and taking more advantage if we're going to extend it.
Very good. All right, how's that? There's a whole other side of it.
Yes. So I know Adam shared a lot about the impact of the state budget bill. So just something that we always want to keep an eye on because it will have a great impact on the services that OE Castle can provide. Then House Bill 1102, contracting preschool programs. This removes the language restricting school corporations from entering into a contract with religiously affiliated nonprofit preschool programs. So ultimately allowing school corporations to have that choice of who they're contracting with.
Crispy, can I jump in?
Absolutely.
On this? Just as a point of clarification for everyone else, local school corporations are already permitted to do this with respect to childcare outside of the preschool context. The provision that prohibited contracting with a religiously affiliated nonprofit only applied to preschool. So this sort of levels the playing field, I guess, across all of those domains and affords public school corporations more flexibility on that front.
And then House Bill 1248, the Child Care Development Fund bill, provides that a household is eligible for assistance under CCDF program if the household includes a foster parent at the time of initial determination and regarding the household's CCDF eligibility. And it does also require that 200 CCDF vouchers be set aside to be used for a child who is placed within a licensed foster care.
Yeah, about this as well. Despite the existence of the wait list, there wasn't a lot of conversation around wait list. And sort of what happens when you say allocate 200 vouchers when there are 0 available vouchers, right? So, there still is, like, I think, an open question around how you, it's something Adam mentioned, right? Like the determinations around how you sort of open those windows for enrollment again, when ultimately it's that overhead, and how we prioritize that 200 versus other considerations. Sorry.
Thanks, Sam.
Oh, no, absolutely. Please continue. And House Bill 1253 amends Indiana Child Care Code. It establishes organizational license category for multi-site childcare centers operating under one owner and specifies obligations of the division with regard to the new license category. And it removes the requirement that a child receiving care from a school must be the child of a student or employee of the school.
So this is, Sherry, this is the
Yeah.
one you asked about. This one is 1102 and 1248, they're already done. 1102 is on its way to the governor, 1248 on its way to the governor. 1253 is in ways that there is an appropriations on Thursday morning. Presumably to just, get the thumbs up and move on, but we haven't heard anything that, is a hiccup around that.
And if I recall correctly, I'm looking at Tequila here, that desire for an enterprise-wide license was something that dates back to the licensing work group and even before. So I think that issue's been raised a number of times, and that's kind of the here. Great. Other questions for Sam and Christie, the dynamic duo?
Can I say one last thing? I think that with respect to the budget, we'll see the Senate's version of the budget by April 15th. And that is also when we are likely to see the revenue forecast. And ultimately, these questions around how much money we have to spend are going to come down to what the tax revenues look like. So please encourage people to make sure they file their state income tax promptly. And please continue to goose that sales tax revenue.
Sam just gave us all.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I like that.
I want to make sure we have as much overhead as we can, right? As much space as we can. Even if the forecast turns out to be wrong, I'd rather it be wrong on the good side. So good luck, everybody.
Well, it seems, there are obviously a number of bills moving that do various things to be supportive of our efforts, mostly to be supportive of our efforts. I do think the big question mark, of course, is all around the budget bill, and we will anxiously pay attention to what's going on there. So thanks to all of you for your work and for keeping us informed in ways that we might be helpful. All right, thank you, Christy. With that, Tequila, I won't just tackle you from the sidelines, but I'll invite you up along with Wendy to talk about the micro facility pilot. This is something that you all will remember was originally brought to us by Senate Bill 2, I believe, last year, and we are anxious to hear how work is proceeding.
Introduction.
Sure, that would be wonderful.
I'm Tequila Welch. I am the director for licensing for the Office of Early Childhood and Out of School Learning.
I'm Wendy Tolliver. I'm a senior project manager that supports licensing, and I'm the project manager over this program, this pilot.
Wendy's gonna do the presentation. We'll do questions after.
Great. Okay, so let's talk first about what a micro facility is, and what kind of the intent behind the bill was. So a micro facility is an extension of a primary program. Primary programs are referred to as hub locations. So the hub location over here on the left there, they already have a director, they have payroll, staff, all other business functions are in place. And so a micro facility is run like a classroom, that's currently licensed or registered, but is at a separate location than this primary location. So it's like an extension of your primary location. And by doing that and allowing that hub site to manage all of those administrative functions in those pieces, that micro facility has significantly less operating costs than the primary location.
Switch seats with you so that you don't, so the popping and cracking doesn't. happen.
Well, I'm just sit down there next to you.
Yeah,
Let's come on over.
not that I'm necessarily looking for company, but I just want.
You think it's that one? You think it's that one?
I think it's one of the two, but
One of
every
these,
time a
right?
page turns, you get it's online, right?
Yeah, we're upsetting everything.
That's okay.
Thanks, Sam, I appreciate it.
Don't.
Okay, so let's talk about our awarded providers. For this pilot, we had 92 applications that we received, and 75 of those applicants met the eligibility criteria. 6 pilot sites were chosen, and this was not intentional, but we got lucky. We ended up with 2 homes, 2 centers, and 2 ministries that were those primary sites. All micro facilities will be registered or licensed as centers, but the primary sites are 2 homes, 2 centers, and 2 ministries. And so if you look on the map there, where you see the blue stars, that's where these sites are located throughout the state. And in spring of 2025, so right around the corner, these 6 sites are set to open.
Wendy, can you share anything more just about the selection process and sort of what made the 6 rise to the top?
So we did have a competitive application process that was overseen by a third party that does a lot of our grant processes. And so in general, we asked a lot of questions. It was not an easy application, and we were just looking for sites that we really felt like we're ready to partner. We're ready to open in an aggressive timeline because of the way that the bill was written. And that had a strong history of positive work thus far, programs that have been open for over 3 years that had a good standing with licensing.
Helpful. And I wonder, going forward then, how will we know these are successful or not? What will be the measure?
So we are collecting data throughout the timeline that these programs are open. It's going to be financial data, it's going to be licensing data, it's going to be just looking at barriers and successes, looking at the cost model. Hopefully these programs it'll be a little bit less expensive for them to run the program. Then maybe they can charge a little bit less for children to come. And so all that data will be collected on a regular basis for that report that we will be reporting out in October of 26.
And Maureen, we understand as an office that this is a pilot and the evaluation piece of this is the point of the exercise to see if this is something that we as a state want to go further on. And, you know, it's not doing the pilot to do the pilot and to get it out it's to do this the right way, which is setting these pilot programs up to be successful right on the front end. And how do we, and then also on the back end on the evaluation process, how do we make sure that we get the information that we need as an office in order to, right, hopefully broaden this outside of just a pilot program.
Can I also ask, in terms of the data that's going to be collected, are you going to capture any sort of measure around parent satisfaction with the experience?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That, you know, I think that is something that will, obviously, given our state's interest in choice models.
Well, and if there's anything, if there's specific things, or I mean, to evaluate, right, we're at the point where the evaluation piece is a little bit farther down the road, but if there's specific data points, right,
Yeah.
Sam, Maureen, anybody here on, you know, around this that you think would be helpful to help tell the story and create a good policy around it, we're all ears.
Yeah, I think parent satisfaction, or to the extent that like specific employers maybe have partnerships with the facilities.
Yeah.
Those kind of satisfaction numbers are good things for us to go back and report to our policymakers.
Yeah, that's a
Thanks for
good
that, Sam.
point. And actually,
Yeah.
you know, perhaps a future meeting would be a nice opportunity to just share those criteria that you're thinking about, and
Of course.
to the extent that we
Yes.
have some additional suggestions we could offer them. then.
Can I add one thing? Just, when you asked about how we selected those, I just want to call out that there was a scoring model. So we chose the top 6 in that scoring model, so
Got
that there's no confusion. We
Got
did
it.
not just handpick.
Oh, of course not. That was never mind, something, but, I'm really thrilled to see the level of interest. These are very significant numbers, and I know it was a pretty tight timeline and just sort of past the holidays, as I recall, so it was nice that, so many providers were.
I mean, there's definitely demand. It's clear at this case, at this level for the Maureen point you just made, right? Like the amount of demand on a very short timeline to get all this together, that demand is there. Is encouraging.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think, by your then October report, hopefully that will inform legislative action if necessary in 2026.
So with these 6 pilot sites, presumably each of those, like each of the 2 homes would add 2 microsites, right? Micro facilities, 1 each,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
6 sites, so two of each,
Yeah, so
right?
it's 6 times for each one, but for.
Well, 6 total.
6 total.
Yes.
But like you have 2 homes,
Yep.
each home would have its own micro.
Oh, yeah, they're individual.
That's what I
Individual.
meant.
Yeah, sorry.
So, no, I know, it was a complex question I was asking. So with that said, what kind of enrollment expansion are you anticipating? Or was it stated in your application?
So each site could have up to 30 children. The
Up
max
to
is up to 30. It's still be depending on the square footage,
Right.
but up to 30 is the max.
Regardless of whether it's a home center or registered ministry?
So all of these will be centers. So
Oh.
the micro facilities, the home, the 2 homes, the way she was explaining, those are the applicants, but the program that they're opening will be a center, a micro facility center.
Oh.
They won't open
okay.
another home, they will
They'll
open,
open
all
another
of them will
center.
open the same type of program,
Oh.
a
so
micro facility
that
center.
was-
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
that needed
Yeah.
clarification. Yeah.
No, those were just the applicants.
Yeah.
So when we did selection, one of the things that homes and ministries and centers wanted to all know that they were part of the process, that they could be a part of this. And so we were not excluding any program type as long as they were licensed or registered to be a part of the application, but all of them were opening the same type of facility,
Okay, with maximum 30 kids.
maximum 30.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I also think I may have made that more confusing, so I.
Other questions? I think sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was wondering if there are other states that you're looking to for this model. Do you see other states doing micro facilities?
We looked at,
Tennessee. Tennessee has a pretty,
no, go ahead.
they have a pretty strong micro facility program that's been going for 20+ years.
Oh.
And they have a different model than we do. We were following, more of what SB2 said, but their model is essentially that there's a hub site that's like a third party that does all admin functions. And then it has, 7, 8, 10 programs that are managed through that main hub. So we did speak with them quite a bit about how this looks and how to work it for our state.
Thank you.
I can't remember, did the language of, it's a good sign, I actually can't remember, did the language of Senate Bill 2 require it to be an existing provider expanding? Or is there an opportunity as the pilot expands for it to be a new type that only operates micro facilities?
It was an existing provider. Yeah.
Within Senate Bill 2,
Mhm.
okay, great.
As it gets rolled out, I don't know what your, sort of a marketing communication plans are. To me, because I come from half of my career in the corporate world, I think this would be a good time to be reaching out to prospective employers to say, somebody mentioned that, to say, what kind of interest would you have in partnering? Assuming that this is going to be a successful model that we want to continue. I mean, I know this is a pilot, but it has a potential, if it's successful, to move forward.
Absolutely, and I think the great part about it is the 6 participants in this grant. A lot of them had already started reaching out to their communities, and some of them have partnered with people in their community to find a location. And so that was very heartwarming to hear that they had already, looked at that process. They, with that in mind, so yes.
What kind of dollars are you allocating for these facilities, or is that under wraps still?
Let us get a good number for you at the next ELAC.
Oh, okay, understood.
Got it, but
And that's just, that's a good question, and I don't think any of us have that.
No, I understand, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Got
The point, you know, from a broader perspective is trying to make, we want to see what we want to see them exist, right? To see what sort of, how we want it to do it from a regulatory perspective. So there is some cost that's going.
Right,
It's just, we can get you a better number here next
okay,
time.
thank you.
great. Wonderful, thank you, but I think it's still your show for regulatory reform update.
Sure. Let's talk about regulatory reform, my favorite subject. Okay, so this is gonna be a content heavy, few moments here. So please feel free to stop me if you have any questions, but, the licensing team has been actively pursuing regulatory reform since 2022. We have gone through various completed initiatives. We've gathered valuable data to inform our current efforts. And so in addition to the ELAC recommendations, we've been using other resources as well. So the first one being that licensing work group recommendations. As I'm sure most of you are familiar, the licensing work group consisted of 15 providers throughout the state with the purpose of identifying regulatory barriers to the licensing process. And their report was finalized in 2023. Next we have,
And just for the
Yes.
sake of the record too, the ELAC recommendations were built on those licensing work groups. So not only
Right.
did we agreed with many of them and tried to leverage them as much as possible.
right, yeah. So then OCASL did an internal legal analysis of our regulations. And so the licensing management team did this internal audit project with an attorney where we reviewed all rules and we separated them into categories of health and safety, quality, and administration. Next, we have the Indiana After School Network recommendations. So IAN had a work group that did their own review of our central rules and made suggestions regarding school-based care and school-age care. So we have been using that one as well. And then finally, the Office of Child Care mandated requirements. So when considering those, there have been some changes that have created opportunities for us. As you guys heard earlier, they talked about, TB tests no longer being required. So that's something that has updated and we've been able to remove from our rule. But also there have been some changes in their language. And so we have to consider those changes around requirements for orientation, not really changing what the requirement is, but the language pieces mean that we need to make changes to the ways that we work our rules. So all of those pieces we have been evaluating in this process. So the goals of regulatory reform are to, of course, reduce that regulatory burden while maintaining health and safety standards, and then to create rules that are easy to read, comprehend, implement, and enforce. Some additional considerations are the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, their laws and rules that govern child care programs. We have to take those into effect. And also the Indiana Department of Health has laws and regulations that oversee child care programs as well. And our next step is that we would like to welcome interested members of ELAC to engage with our regulatory reform work group.
I'm happy to do that.
That would be great. Okay.
I've got to be here. And I'm local.
Oh, yeah.
Even representing the eastern suburbs of
Detroit, yes. Isn't that Canada?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Our 50%.
The goal, so the goal here, just from a broader perspective, is that we want to make sure that when I joined 5.5 weeks ago, I was extremely excited about the extent that the regulatory reform internally within ELAC was, right? And I see that And I also see some things where having ELACs, where we having ELACs input is going to be extremely valuable for us to get to the point that we have all been trying to get to, right, for many years here. And that is, we want to do this the right way, and we're so close to getting it the right way. And I know there's been so much work, and we know there's been so much work from the ELAC side on this. So we want to do this right, because it could be really good. And so that's where this is. So thank you, Sam, for.
Gonna say they're limit.
No,
It's the availability.
yes,
That's what determines your limit.
Yeah, that's always synonym, right, yes.
no, thank you. Really, thank you.
Great. Other questions around that? Yes, I think we are all anxious to see momentum here and appreciate your efforts to make sure that we're continuing to move forward. 22 was a long time ago, so,
Yeah.
and I know many around this table and beyond have been focused on it for far longer than that, so. Other items for the good of the order before we invite public comment? Anyone interested in sharing public comment? No folks in the room? We have time. All right, seeing no anxious flight to the microphone, I think we are just about to adjourn. I will just say, I know it's a heavy time. There is a lot going on, and obviously the CCDF conversation that Adam led is on all of our minds. And so I just appreciate the work of everyone all around the state who cares about young children and is working daily to serve their needs. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to Adam for taking on this challenging task and leaving the soybeans behind. Although on a cold day like today, I think you might have the better
This is all
better
right.
end of the deal. So we look forward to working with you all and to seeing you again soon. Thanks, Devin. I will just say, unofficially, ELAC members.
I think we got it adjourned.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just did it. Sam moved that we adjourn. Does anybody second? Thank you, Kim. All right. I will add then, before we adjourn, I will add my comment I was about to make, which is that I think we're going to reschedule our April meeting. You see that it's TBD there. We had a date on the calendar, but that's proving to be difficult just given some resources across state government.